Hi everyone and welcome. We'll get started in just a minute. All right, let's get started. Hi everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm glad that you could take time out of your day and join our webinar. For those who are new here, my name is Tina and I'm the marketing manager for 79 Consulting. Now, in this edition of our monthly webinars, we'll be talking about tips for a successful e-commerce implementation. This webinar is for anyone who has already decided on their e-commerce platform of choice and needs to know what comes next. Our previous webinar was for NetSuite users who are trying to identify the right e-commerce platform for their business. And should you like to check it out, please do head on over to our website and our webinars archive page where you can find this video as well as all our previous monthly webinars. Moving on, a brief introduction to our company, 79 Consulting. Founded in 2007, we've been providing support, managed services, and integration services for NetSuite clients worldwide. To extend NetSuite's platform functionalities, we've developed a number of Suite apps that you can find on suiteapp.com using the search term Tvarna, which is the name of our parent company. That's Tvarana, Tvarna. All right, on to our panel introductions. Our presenter for today, Athara Nair, leads 79 Consulting's e-commerce practice and has almost a decade of hands-on experience with SuiteCommerce, SuiteCommerce Advanced, Site Builder, and Core NetSuite. Athara and her team are responsible for building, maintaining, and upgrading SCA websites. Hey, Athara.
Hey, Tina.
Next up, we have our special guest client, Kevin Englis from Instructure. Instructure is the creator of a leading learning management system, Canvas, which is used by learning institutions, educators, and students to access and manage online course learning materials and communicate about skill development and learning achievement. Kevin is a revenue accountant turned ERP analyst at Instructure. He has worked there for over 5 years, first in revenue accounting and now as an ERP analyst. Kevin supports systems used by accounting, including NetSuite, Coupa, and Workday Expense. Hey, Kevin.
Hello.
Okay. A small note to our audience before we jump in. If you have any questions for either Kevin or Athara, please don't hesitate to add them to our chat box. We will answer them as we go. I will also be putting in a single poll question during the course of this webinar, and it's just to get to know you, our audience, a little better. Right. Let's jump in and take it to Athara to talk about what you can do to make your e-commerce implementation successful.
Thanks, Tina. So I should preface this by saying that there is no one right way to doing anything, but the steps that I will describe in this webinar are a guideline to ensuring a successful e-commerce implementation. And these apply whether you are implementing your first e-commerce website or you're going through a re-platforming exercise where you're moving from a different platform onto SuiteCommerce or SuiteCommerce Advanced. As Tina mentioned earlier, this webinar is the second of a series, the first of which covered the basics of choosing the right e-commerce platform for your business. So let's get into the actual content. Step one is, how do you prepare for the project? Now, ensuring that you prepare thoroughly before the project even begins will guarantee that you have a smooth implementation. And from the development team's perspective, it is important to review the design in detail with the client's team to ensure that all requirements have been documented and understood correctly. It's also important to discuss the client's go-to-market strategies, such as SEO, analytics that are needed for the website and for the products. The dev team should put together an implementation plan at this stage with weekly deliverables and dependencies from both the dev team and the client's team for each deliverable. They should also document any risks that can throw the project's timeline off and put things in jeopardy. At this time, the client's team should also start the process of getting licensing done and product content ready. So these are images of product data, identifying payment gateway, identifying your shipping provider if you need one, and so on. Kevin can talk about these in more detail.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Athra. So for us, the first step was meeting with our NetSuite sales rep. Luckily for us, it came about the time of our renewal, so we could use that as leverage for getting a good deal on eCommerce at the time. And so it's understanding what exactly you need for eCommerce. For us, we needed to enable the advanced inventory module. We didn't previously have this because we are a software company that also sells trainings. And so we didn't realize we needed that, but the matrix items were essential because we wanted to be able to track the stock or number of seats available for the training. And so that was nice to be able to do that. Another reason that we really enjoyed the matrix items and their functionality is because it allowed you to have iterations of the same item, such as different sizes and colors of t-shirts, or for us, it was more different times that trainings started and ended. And so we really enjoyed that. Something that kind of caught us off guard that we didn't realize that would have been very helpful to have more upfront, kind of like Athra mentioned, was having a contract set up with a payment gateway or credit card processing vendor. That can be a huge delay because generally these have an underwriting that has to occur. And so that process can take a while to get through. And so I would definitely recommend working on that prior to starting the project. The next step is purchasing a domain name. The team at 79 Consulting recommended that we do not use our normal Instructure website domain just so that people didn't accidentally come across it as we were building. And so we found that helpful as well. The other thing that we found really helpful was meeting internally and having a vision of what the business stakeholders, the ones that would be using the website, what they had in mind for how it should work, how it should look, how things should be designed. And so as we gained that idea internally, then we were able to communicate that to our project team. Some of the miscellaneous items that were necessary was key search terms that we wanted users of the website to be able to find, images for the website like Athira had mentioned, and then just the type of items such as services, software versus items to be delivered. So the final point I'll make there is just we need to have a realistic go live goal. I think if you have a date in mind and put that or set that up front, it just helps move things along through the project. So I would recommend having that set up.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, that was awesome, Kevin. Thank you. I just want to add that, at any point in your project, if you have questions or if you don't know what something is or you want recommendations, you should always reach out to your partner because your partner must have done multiple implementations, seen different scenarios. So they should be able to advise you on best practices and, where to start looking for payment providers and so on. Step 2 is basically about how you communicate, right? Communication can make or break a project. So it is important to over communicate rather than under to ensure success. Now, to do this, it is best to establish a cadence between the client team and the dev team early on before you begin the project. From my experience, I have found that weekly meetings, at the very least, are the most effective. Now, as the project gets started, and if you have many questions, you can meet more than once a week, especially in the beginning, but you should be meeting with your dev team at least once a week. And you can use these meetings to discuss, what are the weekly deliverables, what's the progress on these deliverables, is there something that is dependent on either the client's team or the dev team that is delayed, what are the potential risks that might delay your project, etc. Now, who should participate in these meetings? Ideally, somebody from the client's team who is familiar with the business and the platform or the implementation process. Now, the last two aren't set in stone, right? But you should have somebody who is familiar with the client's business. Now, this person we call the sponsor. The sponsor is responsible for discussing and reviewing the project with the other departments in the organization and getting their buy-in. Now, we always ask that only the key folks from the client's team, maybe it's just the sponsor, maybe it's a couple of people. We always ask that only the core team participates in the weekly call with dev so that the meetings can be streamlined. But it is important for the sponsor to take the notes from the meeting and discuss it with the rest of their team. Now, we've seen that gaps in the design do surface occasionally as a result of talking things through and seeing how things actually progress. And these can be discussed and scoped out without hopefully affecting the timeline, provided they show up early enough. Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think that applies to our weekly cadence that we set up with 79 Consulting. The core team that Athra mentioned, I think it depends on your company and who's using the eCommerce and so on. So we had our initial kickoff meeting and then set up weekly meetings like Athra mentioned to go over the progress on both sides, right? On the client side as well as on 79 Consulting side. And so we decided to include myself, who acted as kind of the project manager or the sponsor, I think, as Athra mentioned, as well as the two main users of the website on the business side, those business stakeholders. And we have found that the meetings have actually been very productive. Essentially, what generally happens is 79 Consulting will go through what they've accomplished for the week. They will show us what they've done, and then it gives us an opportunity to ask questions and to, potentially think of things that maybe haven't been thought of with the functionality. Many times I've asked the team members at 79 Consulting to do things in the same role as our users who will be creating items. And that has been very helpful for our teams to be able to build out processes on their own that then they can repeat and scale. Obviously any meeting is only as good as the preparation by both sides. And so I think the meetings also keep the teams accountable. Again, having that go live date from the project onset, it helps drive your internal stakeholders to meet deadlines. Also, I would say, it's the key people to be involved, like I mentioned, I think are the business stakeholders, the accounting department owner, an accounting systems team member, that was me on our side, as well as our business stakeholders, so those that are running the training program here at Instructure. And that allowed me to be able to dive in a little deeper and figure things out, kind of the next step after we learned the features and functionality. And then I would set up internal meetings with the business stakeholders to show them things, to help them with their process write-ups. And that, I think, has allowed for a lot of smooth transitioning to the website from there as we prepare to go live. Like I mentioned, I'd recommend having someone act as a project manager for your company. For Instructure, that was me at this point, but I really think that makes sense to have it be a member of the systems administration team, mainly just because they can do a deep dive, like I mentioned, and learn that new functionality and then help out the business owner.
All right, great. Thanks, Kevin. Let's talk about the development phase. The development phase is where the dev team takes the design that you've provided, combines it with the requirements that you've provided, and actually builds out your e-commerce website for your business. Our best practice is to plan out dev of each component and page separately and build upon earlier deliverables. So for example, in the first week of development, we usually target to have all of the necessary bundles installed, apply the theme of choice if the client has chosen a pre-built theme, have the dev environment set up in each of the developer systems, and check for any issues that could block development. It's a good idea to front load dependencies to reduce risks of delays. For example, have all of the data that is necessary for dev ready as soon as possible, such as a sample set of items with inventory, matrix items if you use them, data for facet filter fields, item images, and key field data for the test set of items. It's important to have all of this mimic reality as much as possible, right? So if the dev team sets up data, it's usually very much test data, but if the business can set up data, you know how your items are set up, you know how your descriptions, your search filters are set up. So it would be great if the business owns this aspect of it. Now, you must also review deliverables in detail with the dev team during weekly meetings, like I said earlier, including, sharing of screens, reviewing what has been built out. Say, are you targeting the build out of the header and footer in 1 week? At the end of the week, when you have the meeting, have the developer share their screen, walk you through what has been developed, look at different resolutions of the screen, desktop, mobile, etc., and see if everything is okay. Discuss any issues with the design or the data. If you've set up images for your carousels and they don't display right, look into everything in detail. Also provide all content needed for development and testing promptly, since this will allow dev to proceed smoothly without delays. We've had cases where, the dev team is all set to go, but the data has not been set up. And all we have are a few test items that the dev team has set up, and we've had to wait for a couple of weeks for the client's team to set these up, and it causes delays and setbacks. So providing all content promptly is key. Now, very important is to also make sure that any backend rules or validations are set up and communicated clearly. So if you have any sort of validations on sales order, or if you have validations on purchase flow, it's important that you let the client team know. And say you want a particular sales order custom form to be used for the website and you don't have it set up, then it's extra work to go back and change that later on. So make sure you have all of that set up as well. Now, once dev is complete, and even through the dev phase, testing is very, very important. Every e-commerce project requires extensive testing, from unit tests that developers run as they build pages and components, to system tests that ensure that the website and the system performs as expected as a whole, to integration testing for any components that interface with third-party systems, like a custom LPL integration. Unit tests, system tests, and integration tests are mostly the dev team's domain. They should be able to deliver detailed test case documentation based on requirements that have been provided to them. These test case documents can be used as a basis for user acceptance testing later on. The UAT stage is one that requires active participation from the client's team. The project sponsor will need to pull together resources from various departments to test the delivered product and to ensure that it is to spec. Kevin can talk about this in more detail.
Athra, before we move on to Kevin, I just want to quickly jump in. Like I mentioned before, I'll be posting a poll question, and that is now. You should see the poll coming up on your screen right now, and it shouldn't take more than a couple of seconds to answer. All right, thanks. Now it's back to Kevin.
Thanks, Tina. So yeah, I think from a testing standpoint, I think the key thing before you start testing is to just make sure that you're actually testing as functionality is delivered. I think that's crucial for any project to go smoothly, is to do things as they're delivered. And generally, like Athra mentioned, 79 Consulting will have weekly goals and targets set up for things that they need tested. And so that gives you a schedule to know what needs to be tested. For us, that included going in and building the items as that functionality was available and attaching the photos. And again, following that instruction that we had received from the project team on how to do things. This also included to go see how the cart experience worked and to ensure that it worked correctly. We also made sure links work in the website. And also for those that need to collect tax, figuring out how to make sure that tax calculates correctly, I think is important. Another important aspect is to look at the order received emails that the customers are going to receive and to customize those to how they want to look. There is out-of-the-box emails in NetSuite, just like there is with everything else, email templates, but we wanted to make them more in line with our other emails that go out. Another reason I think it makes sense for a system administrator like myself to be involved, I was able to customize the look of NetSuite for our business stakeholders that were not familiar with NetSuite. So this included making a center tab that allowed them to have many of the links they needed so they didn't have to go out to all different places to try to find it. And that really helped our users as we built out process documentation to be able to just go to one place. Also, I think it's super important to just ask questions up front, during product demonstration, and then as you test things out on your own as well. The project team has been really great is I come across something that doesn't look right or doesn't make sense for our business, to send that to them and they will respond and look into it. And it's also led to our team asking the project team to develop multiple customizations that our business stakeholders wanted, such as being able to turn off the promo code on and off, which the developers are working on. So I think it's definitely key to do testing and to review what's been done so that you can provide that feedback that's crucial for a successful go live.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. I'd also like to say that by this time, your team should have received training on how to do the basics for maintaining the website on your own. For example, your website management team should know how to set up items for the website, how to set up commerce categories, whether it is manually creating them or implementing them, how to upload images, and how to use site management tools. All of this should be scheduled by the dev team and should be recorded ideally so that they can be rewatched and taken on as needed for new team members. All right, so once you're done with testing, you can now prepare for go live. Now, once user acceptance testing is completed in the sandbox, the code is ready to be moved to production. Once the code is moved to production and all setup is complete, a final round of testing must be done by both the dev team and the client team in production prior to going live. These are the pre-go live tasks that are key. First is, like I said, migrate your code to production. This is entirely on the dev team. But in order to move code to production, the eCommerce bundle must be provisioned to your production account. Now, this is something that the project sponsor might need to take care of during the project lifecycle, and it helps to look at it a little early on and make sure that all provisioning is done before you're ready to go live. You should also have the key peripheral elements set up in production, like your credit card payment gateway, your shipping integration with FedEx UPS, your transaction forms, etc. Now, this can be done by the client team as well as the dev team. You should also migrate data from your previous website if you're doing a re-platforming exercise. For example, if you have reviews that you would like to bring on to eCommerce, it should be done at this stage. If you're new to the NetSuite platform and you're going live with NetSuite as well as your NetSuite website, then you might also want to import data such as historic orders and invoices and so on. Now, very importantly, you should migrate users to NetSuite if they don't already exist in NetSuite. And by users, I mean customers, right? If you're replatforming and your customer data is not already in NetSuite, you can import your customer master into the system via the NetSuite import, CSV import. Please note that you can import customer emails and addresses, but you cannot import passwords. So once you go live on eCommerce, you will need to have your customers reset their password to be able to log in to the new website. 301 redirects are relevant again if you're doing a re-platforming exercise, if you're moving to eCommerce from a different platform. A 301 redirect signals a permanent redirect from one URL to another, meaning all users that request an old URL will automatically be sent to a new URL. Setting up 301 redirects will ensure that there are no broken links if users, say, attempt to access old bookmark links. You should set up your new domain. So prep your new domain and update the CNAME so it points to NetSuite and is ready to be taken live. And again, force the password resets. I can't stress this enough. Make sure that your login register page displays a prominent message clearly stating that users must reset their password to be able to log in. You should also have Google Analytics or any other analytics that are key to your website set up at this point. Once you have all of this done, you are ready to go live, right? And go live is simply, switching the domain, releasing it to the public. Once you go live, it is important to monitor traffic and look at your analytics accounts, make sure that everything is working smoothly. I always have my team set up a safe search of orders that come in on the first few days so that you can review orders manually, make sure that everything is as expected, that there are no exceptions. And it's also important to have your dev team on call to fix any issues or glitches promptly.
So from the client side, I think a key thing for preparing to go live, in addition to what Athra has mentioned, is just to keep a running list of everything you may have done internally separate from the development the dev team is doing that you need to bring over as well. For us, that means many separate workflows we've created to populate items correctly with key fields used internally by the business for reporting. It also means we set up custom websites, sales orders, forms, as well as custom forms for items. So just keeping a running list of all the things that you've created separately that the dev team is probably not aware of so that you can migrate those over in preparation is also very important and will save you frustration later. That's it.
That's an excellent point.
Thank you. Thanks, Athra and Kevin. I hope everyone found that helpful. If you have any questions, please, this is your time to post them. One of our team members is going to be hanging around to answer them. And I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your day to join us for this webinar. If you would like to reach out to Athra or reach out to us, you can use any of the contact information on the screen in front of you. And I hope to see you in a future session. Bye bye.